Alright, welcome back everyone to this new series of tutorials. So I'm opening our to-do list and we just did more server information and we're coming to the good stuff, the core stuff of the things, the multiplayer lobby logic. So we're going to have players connecting, showing each other their entries, the fact that they're connecting and such. I won't make a chat system because I never do it, so I should have a lot of learning stuff going on, and I don't want to do that uh, in this tutorial. This is basically outside of our scope. So let's get to it actually. So let's open up our project. So I think we already have our enum to display the multiplayer lobby. So that's going to be easy to say, hey, focus that window. But the real trick will be to tell all connecting players, hey, focus on the multiplayer lobby. So, because when you join the game, your controller is reset, so you get the base value of the variables on that out-game controller, and you're starting the game with the main menu windows focused as the main menu. And when you join a game, you basically don't want to be on the main menu, you want to be on the multiplayer lobby stuff. So here I've actually NVIDIA Shadowplay that hides what I'm showing you guys, but I think you got it. I'm showing you the enum and the multiplayer lobby. So we basically want to create our window that is going to display our lobby, I believe. So we are going to hide everything from that. So I'm going to click on that little eye, so I have nothing going on here. So how is going to be the multiplayer lobby window? Well, first I believe we want players entry. Tac, 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 tac. So that is going to be a vertical box. For sure that I'm going to have that. So we're going to fill that with the different players. So we need the widget that is going to contain the player. So let's create that real quick. So actually in my interface widgets out game, I'm going to create a new stuff, excuse me, a new widget player entry. So that is going to represent a player when he connects. So I'm going to open our server entry. I'm going to copy paste that box in there. I'm going to tell that box that it is at the top of my screen. I'm going to size that to its content right there. I'm going to change the name of that real quick. So do we want that? Yes, we want a player name text. So that is going to be union for me, for myself, for instance. Do I want that? What will I want? Well, for a start, I think I'm just going to do the name, and we're going to expand on that, so I'm going to delete just that. So I'm not sure why I really copied pasted, but anyway. So we have our player name entry. So is that a variable? Yes, that is. We're going to go on that graph. We're going to delete all of these. And what is that going to need? So like our server entry that is containing the information about a server, we're going to build a player entry containing information about a player. But we can't tell, basically this is going, this is going to be something shown on the screen of every players, so servers and clients. And we basically want all machines to be able to read the name of our players. So if we are storing the name of the players in their controllers, other clients won't be able to read the name of the player, since the player controller is not present, it does not exist on the machine of the clients. So in game, you can use the player character to store information that are shared between different machines, because the player character is replicated to client machines. But since we're not using a default pawn class, we're going to use a player state class. So basically, in my outgame menu folder, I'm going to create a new blueprint class. So we're going to make a player state class. So this is basically an actor that is automatically created when a player joins a game. He can hold variables, and other clients are, and this exists on clients. So clients are able to read variables in that. So we are going to select that. We're going to create that player state, and I'm going to call that outgame p state. We're going to open that. So what do we want to do here? Basically, we're just going to create a bunch of variables. Actually, we're going to start off with player name, because that's, oh, well, we can't call that player name because it overlaps with the base property of Unreal. So p states player name is going to be a string. We're going to hit compile, save, and we are going to say we're going to set a base value for that, just so we can see when that is not set. If we're not setting the player name, it's going to be bot name. Well, invalid name actually. Invalid name as a base value to see when that bugs. So on the player entry, we want to give that widget a reference to the player stats of each players in the game. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're just going to create a variable with the new player state we just created. So that is outgame p state for me. Target player states. We're going to compile to save, and we're going to set that variable is exposed on spawn and on event construct. Simple as that. Get player name. Set text. Oops, set text, not set tooltip text. Set text, excuse me. Get target player state. Get player name. So that is the base value Unreal uses. I'm not using it because I never, well, actually never prototyped with that, so I don't really know how it's behaving. So I'm just going to go for my way of doing things for that. So p-state player name, going to pin that. So when we create a player entry, if we give him a reference to a player state, it's going to have its proper name displayed. So if we go back to our outgame menu, in the vertical box we just created, we're going to call that player entries box. And we're surely going to have some buttons above that. So before I do other tricks, I'm going to copy paste that vertical box. I'm going to call that multiplayer lobby box. That is going to be the main box. I am going to hold Alt to drag and drop the player entry box inside the multiplayer lobby box. I'm going to set my anchors right. I want that in the middle of my screen. I want that to be big. So I don't know how much exactly, but I want that to be big. So, well, like that. We're going to have a bunch of buttons to handle the menu navigation and such, like ready, quit, cancel, start game, maybe change color, stuff like that. So we need to be prepared and to have a box to contain all of that. So I'm doing that in advance. So we have our player entries box. We're going to set that as a variable because like the main server box that we did, we had a box in which we add childs, and we're going to do the same way with that. We're going to add player entries to that box. So how is it gonna be? How is it going to be? Well, we're going to make the event that create box. Well, the previous logic was on the player controller. We're going to do the same. So create server entry. We're just going to copy paste that create server entries, and we're going to call that create player entries. We're going to change that name. Don't forget to run that on client, because if we don't, since the game instance might be triggering it, I'm not sure yet what will be triggering that, but in order to be sure, I'm going to run it on client. So we basically won't have a target server. We're going to have a player state, an out-game player state as reference, target player p states. So because we're going to create a player entry, and a player entry will need a target player state. So that's the game instance is basically going to send that information to the client player controllers. It's going to create that with all players. I'm thinking in the same time, guys. Sorry. So perfect. We're going to. I forgot to add who is owning the widgets. So no, we don't need that because we're creating child. So why is there an error? Is not compatible? Yes, because I'm adding that to a server, to a list of server, and we don't want that. But I think we're going to do exactly the same thing for player entries in order to refresh them and recreate them when players are quitting and joining. So we're going to delete that. We're going to do the same trick, promote to variable. Yep, that appeared behind that. We don't want that new var O. We want an out game controller. Well, how are we going to call that? Uh, player list that is going to be an array of widgets like that. So plug that in. We want to add the widget we just created to that array, and we were adding as child to our box the server entry box, and we don't want that. Remember, that's on our HUD, and on our HUD we have a new box that is called player entry box, and we want that. So player entry, get players entries box. Plug that in target. We want the add child is targeted on the player entry. So when we call that, that creates a new player entry. Wonderful. Wonderful. But when do we want to call that? When do we want to call that? Basically, whenever a player is connecting to the game, right? So I think on event begin play, we were telling the game we were getting the game instance. So that's wonderful. When we were storing references, wait, even better, we're already registering on the game instance. So instead of just increasing the number of players, we're going to say, how are we going to do that? We're going to get the state of that player. But if we have delays, the problem is, as I told you, the player state we created is automatically spawned when a player enters the game. But if there is some lag, some delay going on, and if you instantly try to get the player state, you might get an error because it's not already spawned, because it is lagging and maybe it is spawned 1 second later, and then you're trying to get the game state, the player state, and it's not working. You're wondering why it is supposed so to be there. It always spawn and it doesn't. Well, there is lag. There are always lag actually. So even right there on the editor environment. So I'm not sure how are we going to do that. I think we're going to do some dirty trick, like I'm connecting, I'm getting all player states, and I'm checking, and I'm telling all players to refresh their player entries. I think that I think that's going to be that. So let's open up our game instance. So yep, the problems of doing that on the fly is that I don't always know exactly how things are going to be. So I'm sorry about that. So my game instance, sorry, in my system top-down game instance. And in the game instance, we want a new event, custom event, player joined. We want a new input with a controller. You might wonder why we don't want a player state there, because I think we will do a lot of other things than just getting the player state afterwards. But for now, we're just going to use the state, but not after. So new player. When a player joins, we want a new player. So I created a parameter in that says, hey, that's a player controller value. So when a player controller is joining, instead of increasing the number of players, we're just going to say player joined, new player, myself, this. And we're going to say player join. We're going to hold a list of players. Maybe we can we do something like get player list or something? Get stored recent player list. Get stored and store player list. Get and store. Get and store. Unique net ID. What can we do? Well, that's a feature I'm not familiar with. That looks quite more optimized than what I'm about to do. That's a shame that I didn't see that before. I'm sorry. I think we're going to do exactly the same thing that these nodes do, but in an uglier way. So if you are willing to try yourself at that, well, at these nodes, well, you can do that for yourself, but right now I'm going to remain with my old method. So when a player joins, I'm going to promote that to a variable. I'm going to say that's an array of player controllers, change variable type, that doesn't matter. I'm going to delete that. So new var 0, am I using that? No, I can just delete that. So the new var 1 we just created, that's registered player. So this is a list of players that are in the game. So if that list contains that player, if that list does not contain that player, that's a safety in order to add this controller multiple times in case of a bug of somehow. So if that list does not contain that player, we want to add that player to this list. Right? New player, get that player, we want to add that, and then what do we want to do? We want to get all registered players, to loop through them. We want to loop through them, and then for each of them, we want to loop through each of them. That's a little tricky. For each of the player, we want to get each of the player and create a new player entry, since all of the player needs to see everyone. So I hope you got me. So what do we want to do here? Create player entry? No, because that's a player controller reference, so I need to cast to player. Oh, I'm sorry, cast to outgame P controller. We want to get out the event we just created. Create entry, create player entry, target player states. Well, the player state of the player we just found. So get player states. Well, I can do get player state there, but on the controller there is a command that already gets the player states. Get player state, and then you can cast and get the good player state. So what we're going to do here is that since it's tied to players, player state are already gettable from the controller. So we're going to get actually from the cast, that doesn't really matter, get player states, and our player state is called outgame player states. We want to cast to that player state, and we want to pass that as parameter to the player entry. So we had done quite a loop here. I'm going to review what we've done, of course. So I believe we have our entries properly set up. So player joined. When we're not creating the entries, yes we are. So from our outgame menu, we didn't set the visibility of our multiplayer lobby window, so we're going to do that right now. Visibility bind, create binding, update multiplayer lobby visibility like we did before. Same stuff, copy pasted. Yep, if we're focused on the multiplayer lobby window, we're going to be visible, else we're going to be hidden. So we're on the main menu. We're reaching host multiplayer. That's opening up that. We're hosting a menu, and we need to show that at some point. Yep, when are we going to show that? Well, after someone. So the host is going to host the game, and he's going to be teleported in a new level, but it's going to be the same level as outgame. It's going to be outgame level. And I already told you guys several times, sorry I'm repeating myself, that the variable in our outgame controller window focus is being reset when a player is coming into play. So you basically come and you're on the main menu window. So when someone connects, we need to keep track of whether we're we're in a solo game, so we're supposed to display the main menu, or if we're in a multiplayer game, and if we shall say the initial value of that variable is set to multiplayer lobby. So how are we going to do that? Well, the game instance is supposed to hold variables from a level to another. So this is the place to save such a value. So we're going to have a new variable called is multiplayer, and it's going to be a bool. It's going to be false by default, and when a player hosts a game, it's going to set is multiplayer to true. And when a player joins a game, it's going to tell him that if the game is multiplayer or not. So how are we going to do that? We are going to create a new custom event on that controller called client sets multiplayer game it's going to be run on client, and it's going to say, hey, the window focused is the multiplayer lobby. Compile save, going to add a small set multiplayer game on client, and basically the game instance is going, after doing everything we've done, we're going to add a small sequence to that. We're going to add a small sequence, s-click, pops sequence. Then we register the player. First we register the player. Then we are saying, is this multiplayer? If yes, if it's true, sorry, I don't want to pin. If it's true, hey, sets multiplayer game. Oh, I can't use the event we just created once more because it's a player controller reference. So actually, I'm going to cast again. So I'm just going to copy paste that. Cast to outgame player controller. Get that. If it's multiplayer, set multiplayer game. So how is it going to be? Outgame player controller. Events begin play. Wait 1 second. Authority server get game instance register player. So when we register, we're telling the game instance, add me to your list of people in there. Checks if it's multiplayer. If so, set multiplayer game. So that says I'm focused on the multiplayer lobby window. That is, if you excuse me, right there. So that shows that. We are going to add just a button, an empty button, to see it appear, just in case we have a bug with the player list and it doesn't appear and we just see nothing. So it's going to show that. And it's also going to say, excuse me, on the game instance, actually we want, when a player joins, we want first to check if it's a multiplayer game, because if it's not, we don't want to create a player entry. So actually we're going to use that before. If it's multiplayer equals true, do that. Create player entries every time a player connects. And then, so, well, I think we can try that out instantly. What does that do? The player list, get player name, p-state, player name. I'm going to check that. They're all going to be called invalid name, I suppose. We're going to see if that works. Hit play. Host multiplayer, new map, create. Oh, that doesn't work. I'm going to check if that's refreshing when another player connects, or if I did something wrong. Well, I know what I did wrong. Well, actually, I don't. I'm just going to see if that refreshes when I connect. Maybe it does. Join that, please. Well, at least I'm going on the. At least I'm on the multiplayer lobby window, but that doesn't add players to the list of players, to the list of. What do we did wrong? Well, I know for each player, get each player. Well, I know what I did wrong. I'm saying get each player, and for each player you have, create a player entries. And actually I'm casting here to that, and I should cast to that, because that says get all players. So player one get create. I'm calling that function on each client here, and I should not. So actually this player 1, player 2, player 3 should... Yes, I need to cast that. Sorry, I'm going to break what I did. So I'm looping through every players. I'm casting to them. I'm telling them to create a player entry for each player that exists in the game. And for each player that exists in a game, I'm going to get his player states. I'm going to cast to its player state, and I'm going to create an entry. So that should be good. But why didn't something should have appeared, I believe, or maybe not. Player entry, I'm creating that and that. Well, maybe I set something visibility to false. I'm going to check real quick. Multiplayer player entries box. That's always visible. That was visible after all. I'm going to hit play and to try again. So host multiplayer game, create, browse online games. Oh, my name is not appearing. Why is it not? Join. Oh, I know why. I'm so dumb. So I told you the game mode was able to set the rules of our level. Well, in our game mode, so I'm going to open up our game mode, outgame game mode. In my system it was. I'm going to open that up. And it says what player state class would you want, and it says base player state class. And I need to change that to the state we just created, outgame player state. Yep. So that should work now. If my content browser allows me to hit play. Oops. Up, I'm going to host a game. I'm going to browse online games. Oh, that's not working. I'm sad. It's not working. I'm going to join. And I'm going to add some prints to see what's going on there. So, is that even being fired? Fired off, not sure how to say that. Create player entries. So is that even called? When I say host create, server created. Created? Well, no, that's not the print I wanted to see, actually. Sorry. Host multiplayer create. Then it doesn't spawn any of that. So maybe I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing something wrong there, guys. So what am I doing wrong? That is not being fired. So top-down game instance. Maybe something fails somewhere in between. If that contains, yep. If the list contains the player equals true, not. If the list does not contain the player. So that is going to work, I believe. Hosts creates and nope. Yep, we get message. Outgame controller add child. Access none. Actually, why? Yeah, because our menu wasn't created. Our menu is not. We're creating the menu after a delay, and we're saying, hey, you should create. We're asking to create something, but the menu is not there. So actually, we're going to register only after everything has been set. So after a delay of 1 second, we're going to add a delay of 1 second. And we're going to say, hey, register the player. So that you might find that a bit odd, but actually I really never found a way out of these delays. I found ways to more cleanly delay that, not using numbers, but using things like wait until something is valid to validate to move on the next thing. But that's the quickest way to set up things. So we're going to test that. We're going to host a multiplayer game. We're going to create. And since we are registering a bit after, since we added a delay, it's saying, hey, it's showing us the menu for 1 second. So we're going to fix that real quick. Instead of, I'm going back to the game instance. Instead of saying, hey, we want to disable the menu here, we're going to say no. I'm going to delete that sequence. We're going to say, hey, if that's multiplayer, do not do that. And let's go back to our player controller. We have an event fired off way before the menu. That is server get game instance. And we're going to say, hey, server get game instance, get multiplayer. So drag a pin off the cast, get is multiplayer. If the game instance is multiplayer indeed, we want to say set multiplayer game. Yep. And that is supposed to do the trick. So we're going to join. We're going to say, hey, host a game, create game. We're going to have our name spawning after a while. We're going to browse online games everywhere. And we're going to join. We're going to refresh. We're going to refresh. Oops. Yep. Why do we have 3 names here? Because we didn't deleted the player entries before we recreated one. So actually, when you join, the game instance creates a new player entry for every player in the game. So it created one when the host created, it created one for him. Then the second player joined and the game instance looped on every player, so twice, and it created 2 more player entries for the host. So before we actually create player entries, we want to clear all entries. So back on the player controller, we're going to create a new custom event running on client said remove all player clear player entries. Run on client, and actually we are storing that when we're creating a player list. We're creating that, and we're going to do the same as we did for the server list. We're going to loop through them and say, hey guys, remove from parents, and you're going to go away. So clear player list, player entries, clear player entry, save, and the game instance is going to call that before creating the new entries. So after our cast, we're going to say clear entries. Yes, we want that. And I think it's going to do the trick. To do the trick. So if I'm hosting a game, my player entry is appearing. I'm browsing games everywhere. I'm joining a session here. Here I'm refreshing the server list. There is 2 names. That player is joining. That player is refreshing again. We have 3 player names appearing. That guy sees 3 player. He can join. And then we have 4 player appearing. And we just have to set their name, but that's going to be for the next video, guys, because well, that one was a bit long. I didn't anticipate the fact that it was going to be so long. Actually, I'm sorry. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.